Welcome to A Pair of Bookends, the book club you can carry anywhere. I'm your host, Hannah MacDonald, and I'll be bookending the conversation with some of the most exciting voices from the bookish world. On today's episode, I'm so excited to be joined by Indyana Schneider to discuss her latest novel, Since the World is Ending, which is the perfect book to add to your summer reading piles. It is a beautiful novel set over a hot weekend in Vienna, immersing us in a world of music, desire, and secrets. It's a book about the sacrifices we make and the risks we take in order to build a life as an artist. Indyana Schneider is an international opera singer and novelist. She grew up in Sydney, Australia before moving to the UK to study music at Oxford University and opera in Hanover, completing her training at the prestigious International Opera Studio of the Zurich Opera. She's performed in operas all over the world and has somehow, between all of that, made time to write 2 novels. Her debut novel, 28 Questions, received praise from the likes of Jeanette Winterson, and her latest novel, Since the World is Ending, has received wonderful endorsements, most notably from New York Times bestselling author Jodi Picoult, who said the utter poetry of the writing had her gasping at a phrase transported just the way the right series of notes would move me. Here to chat all about it, welcome Indyana to A Pair of Bookends.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to chat to you. Before we dive into your book, though, I do like to open by asking what you're currently reading.
Yes, I've just finished actually a string of amazing books. One of the weird things about living in Zurich is that you can't really afford books in bookshops here because they are 115 times the price of books.
Oh my God.
So whenever I go to London, it's always sort of so thrilling, the adrenaline rush of walking into an English language affordable bookstore. And I sort of have this frenzy of I need to buy what everyone's talking about because I need to read all of these books. How exciting. And also, I wonder what else is there and what's going to grab my eye. But I have kind of been on the former train recently. So I've read Fundamentally by Naima, like lots of people, and absolutely loved it. And as an Australian who lived in the UK for a very long time, also loved this one I've just finished, Consider Yourself Kissed by Jessica Stanley. And have you read either of these?
I have Fundamentally on my TBR, and it has been glaring at me for the longest time. And I went to an event that Naima did. She did an event near me, and she was so amazing and charismatic, and I was so excited to read the book. But I've had so much to read for the podcast that as soon as I have my summer reading break, I'm going straight for it. But Consider Yourself Kissed, I've been hearing lots about it, but I haven't got my hands on it yet. So tell me about that.
It was endorsed by someone who I really, really, really rate. He's a friend of mine. And she sat me down and was like, indeed, this is a book. It's very political. It's full of heart. And it's about an Australian who has moved to the UK and sort of tracks this 10-year-long relationship and kind of asks, how do we love in these times? How can we possibly build a life with somebody based on the trauma that the UK has been through? And it's just a really wonderful novel and political. And it's a bit like Fundamentally in that it's funny, it's really heartfelt, it's political, it's interesting, it's kind of, I kind of recommend.
Oh, I'm sold. This is a disaster though, because whenever I have an author on the podcast and they tell me about all these amazing books, I'm like, great, well, I've got piles all around the house already that haven't been read. I just need to go out and get more.
I know. I'm moving back to the UK this July and I have to pack up my bookshelf. And I wasn't aware of how long my TBR list was until I sort of had the box of books that I plan to read this summer that I was like, no, this needs to come earlier than the rest of my suitcases because I need to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you can't be leaving the books behind. But let's get into your book. Because as I said to you before we even started recording, I have so much that I want to speak to you about. I love this book so much. I believe that you spent 4 years working on this book, and I'm really curious to know what that experience has been like for you and what the difference was between writing your debut and writing this book.
Yeah, I mean, so many differences. I think my main thing about writing is you kind of need to be completely obsessed with what you're doing in order to finish a book. And with a debut, you kind of write the whole thing and then you sell it. And it's probably not that different from when you sell it to when you write it. Like that sort of, you're still obsessed with the same ideas. But I sold it on a 2-book deal, which means I've sort of been thinking about this book for quite a long time and sort of sunk into it properly in 2021. And what I was obsessed with in 2021 versus last year is actually quite different. So the sort of first draft of the novel was very, it was really the things I was thinking about at that time. It was obviously very pandemic influenced. And then as time went on, I sort of wanted to make new changes. And actually, no, I think it should be more about this, or I think this character needs more of this. And it was this sort of, there were so many, there were like 117 rewrites. And I've had so much fun with it. And the other slightly weird thing that happened, you talk about, I listen to a lot of author interviews, and they often talk about things being like a little bit prophetic, which as quite a superstitious person freaks me out, because like, what you know. But the character in this book is part of this sort of young ensemble in the and there is an opera. I'm an opera singer as well as a writer, and there's this opera equivalent in Europe, a young artist program, which are these coveted positions that I never ever thought I would be a part of. And then after I'd written, draft 3, I got into one of these studios in Zurich, and then kind of like lived this young artist life in this European city, and was like, oh, I think I do need to go back to the place. And the kinds of conversations I've been having about. So I think at the beginning, the book was very much about being in your late 20s and kind of finally having to make choices about the path that your life will take.
Yeah.
And then what it means for you to like make pragmatic choices about partners, not just, passionate choices, etc. Whereas towards the end of writing, I was sort of obsessed with this idea of how are you an artist and a person, or how close should your art and your life be in all of these different ways. So I think just a lot more time to really, really get deep into this story. And also just knowing it was going to be published is kind of weird. I think.
In what way?
I think the first book I really did not write to publish. I wrote it because I was heartbroken and had a long commute. Yeah, if I'm being completely honest.
Whatever gets you through.
Exactly. And just like poured my heart. I sort of had this question I wanted to answer, and kind of wanted to write this love story that dug into that question, which for 28 questions was, why does the perfect friendship not necessarily end up in the perfect relationship if you then romantic? Whereas, yeah, this book was just knowing it's going to come out. You're always second guess and suddenly I'm a writer and people refer to me as an author, which I find very funny. And especially sort of in my day job. I was out for drinks after a show last night, and someone found out I wrote books. And yeah, it's an odd thing to bring up at music tables. But
do you feel like you try and keep those worlds separate?
I don't know.
Fair.
This is kind of an ongoing question. I remember I asked quite a few friends whether I should even have like different Instagram accounts, because
oh wow,
who follows you for singing things, they kind of don't want to know what you're reading. And if someone follows you for book stuff, I don't know if they want to know what my new wig looks like or whatever. And
but it's all a part of you.
That's kind of what my friends have said.
Yeah.
It's tricky. I think in the publishing world, they love the music stuff. In the music world, every now and then I sort of have a conversation with someone who's like, well, how can you find the time to practice enough?
Yeah.
You're sort of, people I think with children get asked similar questions, and it's like, well, let me do my job, and if it's not good enough, then we can chat, but otherwise,
Yeah.
But it works really well for me. I think opera is so social and so loud, and as an opera singer, you have some creative autonomy, but ultimately you are a figure in a director's vision. And obviously writing is solitary, quiet, slower, and you do have a lot more to say as an artist. So yeah, I can't imagine not doing both of them at the same time.
I love that, and I love that you're pursuing both of your passions, because I think it's such a difficult thing to pursue one thing as a creative, let alone multiple things. And I always say to my boyfriend, I'm like, why couldn't I have just like been happy with, like, I used to work in restaurants when I was younger, and I was like, I would easily be like, I honestly think with like my drive and like how hardworking I am, that like I could be a big manager in a restaurant by now. But instead I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to write, and I wanted to do the podcast, and I was like, I want to do all these things that like
creative portfolio career.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
I don't know. It is, I agree. I do agree. My dad works kind of in maths.
Oh my God.
He's just a really happy little maths dog doing his maths stuff. And he sort of says, when you love something, successful follow. I'm like, yeah, but Dad, you love like a very easy job. So.
Yeah.
I think it's funny though, isn't it? Because that's all the kind of questions that your protagonist Maya throws up for herself in the book.
Mhm.
And when this isn't a spoiler to say, I do like to keep these things spoiler free, but it says in the blurbs, this is safe, that her ex-boyfriend comes to Vienna. He arrives there, and that kind of throws a spanner in the works for her, and has her thinking a lot about her past and where she's ended up and how their relationship ended. And she has this conversation with him about like she doesn't want the same things as him, and she probably never will, like, and that's because she's chosen this life for herself, and it's so hard for somebody to grasp that when they don't come from that world. And I just found it so fascinating to read because I think I've pursued a creative life myself. And there's I want to ask you about Maya and about the inspiration for her, but I have a quote which I really loved and really resonated with me. And she says, I think she's talking to her sister at this point. I tell her how much I hate the way I feel things. When things hurt, they hurt too much. Cuts slice too deep. Bruises hit bone. I want to be one of those people who can raise their guard when necessary. And I just think it describes so beautifully and sort of represents the sensitive sort of soul that she has. And I feel like it's very specific to a creative. That's just my thoughts. I don't know if that's true for everybody, but I'd love to know what inspired Maya, and yeah, tell us about her story and where that came from.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, by the way. I also really love that. I really love that. And yeah, she's going through such a hard time.
She is. She's going through it.
No, you should feel for her. I have enough distance now from the story to like have sort of separate empathy.
I've only just come out of it. I'm still very raw from this. Thank you.
You're good. No, I love Maya. I feel like because it's been such a long time writing her, obviously she's developed and changed so much. You know, this is not a spoiler either, one of the sort of questions at the beginning of the novel is why has this ex-boyfriend reappeared in her life?
Yeah.
And I've written different versions of the novel where the reason is different, but then even that reason kind of changes Maya because suddenly I put her in different situations and she reacts in a way I'm like, oh, okay. Her family life only really came about in draft 2, when my agent sort of said, like, it's a book that's set over a weekend. It's in Indyana. It's so easy to get really lost in a beautiful way in the sort of moment to moment, but we want to know more about what brought her there and all of that. So I think during the pandemic, I did a master's in Germany studying music, and it was the first time I had been surrounded by musicians basically 24/7. And we sort of all have a bit of I say musicians, I mean creatives in general, like a wild twinkle in our eyes and this like kind of ineffable passion for this thing that we've chosen to like properly devote our lives to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the tension between that and this current world talking about boundaries and work-life balance, sort of, I don't, as a like individual, I don't know what to do with that, because for me, it doesn't.
What is that?
What is that? Or like,
Teach
why
me.
is life separate, and how I was having a conversation with somebody recently who quit music and basically stopped music in the pandemic and was just so much happier. She has like a beautiful job and beautiful friends, and her work facilitates her beautiful life, and I love that for her. And it's just not something I could ever relate to. So I did want to kind of create, especially in these days where we are like, I think it's wonderful we're putting up boundaries, don't get me wrong, but I sort of in the arts world, those boundaries feel crumbly because we love what we do so much, and you sort of square that with building a life with somebody or family and all of these things. So that was sort of the beginning of Maya. And I knew I wanted her to be a violinist because I've always kind of been fascinated by violin, and I watched, I can't tell you how many violin masterclasses I've had with them. And yeah, okay, I guess that was the beginning of this.
I mean, she's a really interesting character, and there's so much that I loved about her story, and I've definitely got many questions to ask about the world of music. But firstly, I want to ask you about the way you play with contrast in this book, because on one side, as I mentioned, we have the reappearance of this all-consuming love that she had with her ex-boyfriend, but on the other side we have the excitement she feels of this new romantic spark she's experienced with, is it Lucia, is that how you say her name?
Yeah.
Lucia, who is somebody else in, what would you describe it, it's the Philharmonic, is it, is that what you
It's this sort of fictional young person's orchestra. So in music, often you're not a real person until you're in your 30s. You have to do these kind of internships, I guess.
Oh wow.
You can do this is one of the ways in at these big institutions where you trade work for learning and kind of a stipend. So this is a fictional orchestral version of one of these programs.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's such a wild environment to be in, because it's also international. People come from all over the world. So for me in Zurich, again, I wrote the novel before I moved here, or at least the first few drafts, but I'm working with, last year I worked with someone from Armenia, from Ukraine, and from Iran, and in this time making music.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's really kind of amazing and fascinating.
I mean, I can imagine without all of those layers and backgrounds involved, it can be a really intense environment anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that just adds a whole other layer to their dynamic anyway. I love that you've told me that. But yeah, I just wanted to ask you about that contrast that you play with between those two characters and these two kind of connections that she's found.
I'm going to be honest, it wasn't deliberate. I think it's very late now. I think I see what I'm trying to do in creating a love triangle where each of the love interests represent something.
Yes.
I just sort of met these people. That sounds so bizarre. I sort of had these people in my mind that I then, developed.
You know these people now. You've been with them.
And one of the weird things, slight tangent, but about love triangles is I've always thought that until I tried to write one, I always thought writers kind of had in mind who they really wanted you to go for or root for. And I've spoken to a few people who've read the book now, and they kind of all root for different versions of the ending. And I didn't really write it with anything in mind. And it's so I won't give anything away, but it's so odd to hear. Like, some people are massive supporters of character X or character Y, and it's really odd.
I was really surprised though. I think my choices switched throughout the story, which was really interesting. And then by the end, I was like, this makes sense.
Okay.
Like, this is how it should be. And I trusted that. But it was very close to the end when I was like, no, like I can't have this. And then I was like, no, this makes sense. Yeah.
I think so too. My aunt is never going to forgive me. Like, it's actually quite funny. I kind of expect that from her. But yeah, but I also do think one of the things about Maya is how important music is to her. Her ex-boyfriend is not a musician.
Yeah.
Having something that sort of juxtaposes with this sort of deep stability and love that she has for Josh and had for Josh, really worked for me to kind of explore what she wanted. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, this sort of question that was obsessing me about at the beginning of writing this, about how on earth do you make these choices? And you kind of have to. And what happens when your choices start having actual life consequences?
Yes.
For a woman, like having children, Maya's in her late 20s and kind of has to start, choosing. Having two options ahead of her, it is quite neat, isn't it? But it felt really real to me, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It felt real to me, and I was, with it for a few days. So you, having taken years with these characters, I can imagine you didn't want to leave them.
No, I don't. And whenever someone chooses one or not the other or whatever, I sort of have quite a visceral response. It's very odd. But you are the first person that I'm speaking to about this novel who I don't know intimately. So it's just exciting.
This is very exciting. I love that so much. Now, I did say that I have lots of questions about the music world, and I find all this stuff really fascinating. It is, of course, as I said, it's set in the world of music. But obviously you yourself are a part of that world. What do you feel it is about that world and the people that inhabit that world that makes for such a compelling story? Where do you start?
I think my first thought is I really do believe that I don't believe you have to write what you know.
Yeah.
But I think there is a really special quality to books by someone who have experienced the field that they're writing. I think fundamentally the really good example of this.
Fundamentally, did you say?
Fundamentally, yeah. I just don't think you could have so much rich detail and thought and philosophy and drama if you hadn't kind of been in that.
Yeah.
You're gonna love it.
I've heard her speak about it. I'm already there. I'm ready.
I'm ready. And so I think that's the one thing. Like, I am really involved in as well. I think that it's so international, and people have such big personalities and such interesting stories, to be honest, as to what brought them to. I mean, in my case, Zurich. In Maya's case, Vienna, and yeah, everyone shares those stories, and there's so much conversation about language, which I love, and about love, which I love, and emotions and art and all of these things. So I think that was also really appealing to me. But then I'm kind of obsessed with like the mind body split, I guess, in a way. Just I really love things that are really embodied. I think, especially in the world right now where like politics comes in and tries to rob us about like bodily autonomy, or you know, the sort of Descartesian we are what we think. I really disagree. I think it's really important to, and I think reading is it can be such a cerebral experience that for me it's really important to engage with the body, whether that's someone reading a book and then choosing to listen to the music from the book, or laughing, or like being sexed up, or whatever the sort of like bodily response is. I think that's like a real goal of mine. It's something that's really important to me, writing. And so the music world feels like such an easy in to like an embodied experience, I guess.
Yeah. I think you know, it's so interesting hearing you say that, because the body plays a huge role in this book. I mean, it's so sensual, this book, in so many ways, and it really kind of pulses with that, and with sensuality and desire and lust, and you know, not only, you know, looking at this sort of body's relationship to the instrument and the music and all that kind of stuff, but you know, in terms of the people in this book. And I have to say that you write really excellent sex scenes, and and I think it's always a joy to read a really good sex scene, and then you realize when you're like, this is really good, to go, I've actually read so many bad ones, or so many ones that have made me cringe. How have you found that?
Oh, it's such a vibe, isn't it? I actually remember in the first book, I think I found them a lot easier to write in this book, because I knew what I wanted to do with the sex scene, why I was there. In the first book, I was still sort of learning. And I remember sitting down with a bunch of like what I had heard was sexy novels, and just like reading the sex scenes in the book very academically, and trying to figure out what worked, what didn't. For me, like the hardest thing is vocabulary. Knowing bits.
Yeah.
We haven't actually spoken about what words not to use or to use on this podcast.
Go for it. I've got no.
Like pussy creates such a vibe. Yeah, as do others. And like cock is so different to penis, is so different.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's what catches me. That's the bit where I'm like, oh no. And
I think different people are comfortable with different words, aren't they? So it's really difficult to kind of know what is best. I think you've got to go with what you think, because there's going to be, you don't know what reader you're going to get, and they might be uncomfortable with one word, and the next reader might be totally fine with that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the main kind of bit of advice I've heard, and what I really try to do, is just be authentic to the character.
Yeah.
And if the character's going to use that word, fantastic. If this character's really demure and suddenly talking about pussy, maybe you need to rewind a little bit. But it's not going to be for everybody. I remember I sent an early copy of my first book to somebody I know and asked her thoughts, and she said she really loved it, but she really doesn't like the word cum. And I was like, ooh, okay. Well, that's it took her out of the story, and I respect that. But I'd sort of, it was the word that made sense for that character at that point.
Yeah, but also it's like, what happens? What do you mean?
I do occasionally get a bit drunk before I write sex scenes.
I love that.
Yeah, like I also, especially, I had been in a relationships with women for quite a long time, and writing a heterosexual sex scene, or a sex scene between a man and a woman, I really had to like go deep into the memory banks and the booze. So
well, you did great. You did great. You did great. But there was also one of the sexiest scenes in the book is actually without the sex, and I'm pretty sure I've got the right fruit in mind. But is Lucia eating mango? Is that what she's eating?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so hot.
Really? Oh, good.
Yeah, and I don't know why it was so hot, but I was like, oh my God, like it was like one of the sexiest scenes in the book.
Oh, wow. That's interesting to hear. I mean, I think Lucia is so hot. So,
yeah, I get that.
Yeah, she'd eat an apple, and maybe it would be a similar experience. No, I mean, mangoes are so sticky, and
Yeah.
it's so warm in Vienna, and I think that ice cold fruit when it's scorching.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that is sexy.
It does bits.
I'll buy those.
The practice room as well, but I will say no more.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm glad. I actually got the most. I know somebody. They are a cellist, and they're actually going to play the cello at the opening, the launch of the book.
Oh my God.
I'm so excited about. And they, oh no, I don't know whether I should. No, I think it's funny. But they sent me a voice note after reading the scene you mentioned. Just like not okay. I really appreciate
It's so good. It's so good. Let's get into the music.
Right,
We're at the practice room, so we might as well. But I was really intrigued because at different points in the novel, Maya's in literal conversation with her violin, and you give the violin a voice in the book. Is this quite a common thing in music to like believe that you're in conversation with your instrument?
I don't know. I think I was sort of writing, and I remember this really, I remember really clearly doing this. I was writing a scene where she's practicing and they're sort of speaking out loud. And I think that's kind of normal. Or maybe that's just me and the people I know, but speaking out loud. And then I sort of started writing this like voice and response, and it kind of kept going, and it was extremely organic. And in a later draft, I sort of figured out why I wanted to do that and what that represented. But I think saying that would be maybe a spoiler, but having this kind of didactic voice around. There was a version I tried where it was a voice in her head, but it is just a different character, and it's not a fantastical novel. There are no other talking, inanimate.
No.
But it felt like that would be the way that this particular character would think about music, or would need to kind of separate herself or her passion and like fire for music from the very like didactic technical side of things. That felt really true or honest.
Yeah.
I definitely don't think of myself as separate from my like voice, but maybe it is different if your instrument is outside you and you do actually have a sense of separation. I don't know.
I think it was a really cool like quirk of hers, wasn't it, to see her having this conversation with her violin. And I just think it was really nice for her when she was especially she was going through it in this book, and to have that there as a kind of comfort that she can look to and sort of engage with in that way. I just thought it was really nice.
Thank you.
We as the readers are of course privy to Maya's every thought, and there's a performance that I want to speak about because during a performance we observe her kind of becoming distracted during the performance and frustrated with herself for being distracted, and afterwards she says, I burn with the displeasure of imperfection. No, displeasure isn't right. Revulsion, I'm revolted. I feel filthy. And I just loved this moment so much because as an actor, like when I've performed on stage before, I've definitely been in conversation with myself and been like, why the fuck did you just say that in that way? Why did you say that line in that way? Why have you just paused for so long? That person in the audience isn't looking at you. They think you're awful. Like, did it? And you have this back and forth. And you think when you're inside your own head that you're doing the worst performance in the world, or I don't know, you get really distracted by that. But then actually, like when you're watching somebody perform, you don't ever consider like what might be going on in their minds. And I just think that's such an interesting kind of, I don't know how to describe it. I just thought it was a really interesting like war that she has with herself. And I was curious if that's something that really resonates with you as a performer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the critical inner monologue is tough. I think what's been really interesting, I've been doing a show at the moment where there are 10 performances, which is quite unusual for opera. It's normally far fewer. And there have been nights where I've been super present. I am the evil queen, of course. And there have been nights where it's like, oh, the stage is quite dry. I wish I'd had an extra sip of water before I came out. I've got to get this guy out of the way, but I don't really want to push him. But I mean, it is quite funny. Have you ever seen the musical The Last 5 Years?
No, I've not. No.
I love it. It's this like love story told in reverse, but it's about an actor, a musical theatre actor, and a writer who are in a relationship. And there's a song in it where the musical theatre actress, she is singing an audition, but then the sort of the song that she's singing turns into her inner monologue.
Oh my God, I love that.
Fantastic. And it is kind of that energy of, it's like, why are you looking at my shoes? I didn't choose these shoes on purpose. Like, singing. Why are you looking at my resume? I made all of that up. And it's great. But it's really hard, because I think one of the most, I don't know if you feel this as well, but one of the most incredible feelings as a performer is being in flow. Just like living the text or the
Yeah.
And when you fall out of that, it is really a crash landing, especially when things feel not great.
No, but you know what's really bad is when you realise that you're in flow.
Yeah, exactly.
And then pull yourself out of it. And you're like, what are you doing? Stop.
That's a skill. That's a skill. I mean, wow, I wish I had more of that energy. Because it's such a technical craft that's also so emotional, and it's like, how do you? Yeah, I don't know.
It is a difficult, annoying world.
Yeah, it is. And I think also, especially like in the scene in the book, it's a one-off concert, and I've done those as well. And when those don't go perfectly, which of course they're not going perfectly, there are so many notes, or in your case, maybe so many words, like it's never going to be perfect, but
you put so much pressure on yourself though, don't you?
Preparation and pressure, and 90% of the people in the room won't be able to tell you're 100% from your 80%. And yet.
But you always think that one-off is going to ruin your entire career.
Right.
And or going into it, you think, right, this is going to be the one that changes everything.
Right. I mean, I did something like this recently where I really got in my head about like what this meant. And it was just one of like a million things I've been doing recently. But it's so hard to divorce yourself from the reality that if you do one bad show, it's actually going to be fine. And it's interesting. I've worked with some incredible singers over these more longer term projects recently, completely inspiring, and they differ night to night because they are human. And it's been really like humbling, is that the right word? Or just like reality to realize that just people can vary. Like your people in opera talk about your daily form, but like how you wake up that day, what the weather's like, how well you slept, like what you ate, it all how you feel, you know, the conversations you've had, it all really impacts your
massively.
And so poor Maya, she does.
She does. But there's also that on that same evening she watches a performance. I think does she watch the performance before she performs herself? I think it's that order, isn't it? And she watches this woman who is a soprano, is that how you say it? She watches her perform, and she's really impacted by this performance. And at the end, she describes herself as shivering with the violence of the music, which I just loved as a sentence. And I'm curious, is there a performance that you've watched that has had a lasting impact on you like this?
Oh, I mean, many.
Yeah.
I think it's a small thing, and it's a very recent thing, but I sang like a little chamber concert here in Zurich a week or 10 days ago, and there were two performances, both in the mornings, and one of them I had to leave straight after I had sung my bit because I had another performance. It was a very wild time. But on the second day, I got to stay and watch the string sextet play some Schoenberg, and honestly, it felt like walking into my book in a very weird way, because watching six musicians click into each other like that, and they would breathe in sync, if you ask them to. Like, they are so clicked into each other, and watch all of these musical conversations happen. And, you know, by the look on the cellist's face, you can tell that the second violin is going to have a moment, and that they're all waiting because the viola really is going to be this. And it was just exquisite. It was breathtaking to watch. That's sort of the most recent example. I love that. There's a woman, a soprano called Julia Kleiter, who sings just before I run on stage as the Evil Queen. And it's such an honest performance. And I think a lot of the thinking I've been doing over the past few years about what it means to be a musician is like just to give honest and true performances. And it leaves you a bit speechless, actually. Yeah, it's very, very beautiful.
I love that. Yeah. I also love that she just kind of couldn't get over the fact that this woman had managed to just kind of step out of character and just kind of leave it behind when she felt so changed by it. Because I think that's so real.
Right. And I mean, do you have this with acting? Can you snap in and out of yourself and the character you're playing, or do you need like a
I think it depends. I think it was what you were saying before, and that like it can change from performance to performance, and it's all dependent on that day. I think sometimes you'll do a performance and it'll just really stay with you, and it's really hard to shake off, and you kind of go to bed feeling. I think it's dependent as well on what the subject matter of the players or the part is. I've like, I did a short film once, and it was about this trigger warning. It's about this woman that was being like sex trafficked, and it was obviously really dark, and I kind of came away from that and I couldn't really sleep that night because I was just thinking about like how horrendous that is and the statistics behind all of that. And it was really hard, but then you do other things and you can kind of go, yeah, that's done now. So I think it's dependent on the role you're playing or the story you're telling.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah. Is it the same for you?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I think that opera has a bad reputation of being quite artificial. And so you meet a lot of singers who are there for the craft of singing, which is incredible. And there is something very special, I think, about the sort of unamplified human voice that can really hit you in the chest. And for a lot of singers, that is what it's about.
Yeah.
And there are others where it is more about the drama and I'm sort of figuring out how to balance these two. Basically, like Maya in certain ways. I think that it's a weird thing in music, because if you're crying, you can't play or sing. So you do have to have in the way that in acting, if you are particularly moved by something, you kind of can cry.
Yeah.
And if the voice breaks, like, all the better.
Yeah.
And you can slow something down if you want to, because there's no, person with a stick waving at you to carry on, and I think there are so many constraints that we are tied to. Being able to really feel authentically what we're doing is quite a challenge sometimes. But when it happens, it's so rewarding. And I think that those are the most like satisfying performances, where you live with that music and you live with that text and the poetry. And
that's really fascinating. I've never even thought about the fact that you're not allowed to let the emotion sort of take over.
I mean, for many reasons, like often you're singing in a language you don't speak, so you've learnt it, you've translated it, but you are missing some of that native relationship to the language. Kind of interesting. And I know I speak German and English, but I don't speak Italian, for example. I sing a lot in Italian. I have to do so much work to mean what I say, I think is what I'm trying to say. But trying to find the balance of emotion that's not going to overwhelm your performance. And also, I think one of the things I've thought a lot about is how much how you feel is communicated. And in performance, it's not really about you, it's about the audience.
Yeah.
And having this like really tense moment might like ruin it for somebody else if your voice is not as present, or
that makes sense.
There's so many, and I think learning how to express emotion and feel it, but like impact and sort of touch an audience is such skill, and it's sort of a lifelong journey, I think, for us.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear about that part of it, because of course you're a performer as well. But I think there's so many different ways it diverts from what it's like for an actor as a performer to how it is for a musician as a performer, or for a singer as a performer. It's all very different. There's all different technicalities and stuff involved, isn't there? I really want to ask you, there's another quote in the book. I feel like I've just kind of continually quoting your book back to you, but I very much adored the writing. But there's a quote about the world of music that I was really fascinated by. And you wrote, "In a career as international as music, you must adapt your expectation of harassment to each new place of work." And in this book, this sentiment is sort of personified, I think might be the right word, by the character, is it Davarin? Is that how you say his name?
Oh, yeah.
Who's just a dick. Let's just start with that. Could you tell us about this character and what he kind of represents?
Yeah, totally. And as you say, he is kind of the personification of that idea of, I think a few things. I think one is, if you're a freelancer and your job depends on your performance, being invited back means not being difficult.
Yeah.
Which makes things really hard, because if you've had a difficult experience with somebody, and I've had a lot of very pessimistic conversations with people about this, I spoke to a director once and I sort of said to him, how can you communicate that you're not comfortable with something without being labeled difficult or not present? And he came up with a lot of like great ideas. But we kind of ended on like, you need to age and become more successful so that you can kind of put your foot down, which is horrible and quite real in this industry. That's sort of the one thing. And then the other thing is like moving from the UK, where I think cancel culture lives and you really feel protected, I think, in a lot of ways that you don't I have not experienced as much in mainland Europe or in certain places or in certain houses with certain cultures. And like, it's not even necessarily experiences I've had, but I've spoken to so many people who are in country X where actually the bar is really different. It's much higher for what people would consider harassment. And I think the thing with Davarin is, in a lot of places, the way that he behaves is like he's a dick, but he's not like a reportable dick. Or do you have to then wait for somebody to do something you can report them? And this horrible cycle. So, and I think it's pretty common, if I'm honest.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same in your world.
I mean, Me Too started in the arts industry.
Right.
Like it's
Exactly.
It's bullshit, you know. And I think so often you feel like you can't rock the boat if you're not in the position that you want to be in the industry. If you're still trying to work your way up the ladder, it's so easy to just accept, you know, even if it's not anything as, you know, violent as, I don't know, even if it's not like a violent type of behavior that you're experiencing and it's not, you know, like predatory behavior or something like that, even if it's just like somebody being cruel, you feel like you can't even, it's so difficult sometimes to speak up against that because, like you said, you don't want to come across as difficult and you don't want to rock the boat and you don't want to be perceived as somebody kind of causing trouble. You want to be, you know, somebody that people want to work with again, but you also need to find your own boundaries. And it's just, I think it's so difficult for artists and creatives to put up those boundaries because we have this feeling that we can't, you know, cause an issue.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it is, I think it was really important to me to write a very like deep and multi-layered experience of being a younger classical music or being a woman in classical music. Lucia's not white and being a musician in Vienna. You know, I did a lot of research into that at the beginning of this book and spoke to a lot of people, and it, you know, it's really real. And I think it was, you know, yes, of course I wanted to write my bisexual love triangle Scotland in Vienna book, but I really wanted it to be honest about that experience, and Davarin is like a good example of something that might happen.
Yeah.
Sort of how that whole situation unfolds doesn't feel so foreign to me.
Yeah. He made me so, every time he came on the page I was like, please go away, like, why are you here again? You know exactly the kind of guy he is, you know it. I want to ask you about the many amazing cultural references that are scattered throughout the book. Of course, the title itself, Since the World is Ending. Do you want to tell us where that came from to start with?
Oh, sure, yeah. Ben Lerner wrote a poem that's referenced in one of his books that says, since the world is ending, why not let the children touch the paintings? Which broke me. And I remember my friend during the pandemic, my friend Kathy, I think she put something up on social media of her playing the guitar and singing the song, If the World Was Ending. Do you know the song?
No.
Beautiful. It's this like pop duet. And it's between these two people who say, you know, we're not right for each other. I know, you know, we know we're not meant for each other, and that's fine. And then there's this like pause, and it says, but if the world was ending, you'd come over, right? And it's this feeling of between Josh and Maya, and like for I think a lot of people, where it's like, yep, we're not meant to be, that's fine. But you're maybe the love of my life. What do we do with that? And sort of this looking at these two things that I've been thinking about so much, which is sort of, how do you make art in a world on fire, and do consequences matter, and our tiny little lives, we're just dust in the atmosphere. And then also this, what do you do with all of this love that kind of can't go anywhere? Those are sort of, that's what influenced the title.
I loved the different ways that it was used in the book. You know, since the world is ending, why not go to Vienna? I just loved it so much. But I also want to ask about another reference in the book, because she has a moment, Maya has a moment with her ex-boyfriend Josh. They lie on the floor and listen to the entirety of the album Blue by Joni Mitchell. Why did you want to feature this album specifically?
Well, I love this album, and I remember I was in Australia, and I think it must have been 2021, and I was working, but the work got cancelled, and I was sort of lying on the couch, and I was like, I need to listen to Blue. From the beginning to the end. I need to cathartic.
Yeah.
And I was at the point in drafting the novel where this scene was going to happen, and just sort of sitting there listening to the music, and kind of had this, like, my imagination kind of took off, and I imagined these characters in this room looking at the ceiling and kind of what they would be thinking, or what. Yeah, it was all very like in real time, and I think that's actually one of the best things about writing a book is there are so many things from life that you sort of happen upon or think about, or a stop sign you'll see, and then that day you happen to be writing, and it kind of goes in. And reading it again all the way through, you have this sort of collage of memories, experiences, or conversations you've had, or things you've heard about. And I really love that as a writer, actually, in quite a selfish way. It's sort of this like secret log of all of these, like, not stories, but sort of details and moments that, yeah. So I love that. And as I say, I really wanted this book to be full of music and full of art. And yeah, it really made sense. And yeah, I just love that album, man.
Yeah, it's a good album.
Good album.
And you do have, there's so many great references. And I could honestly speak to you for hours about this book. I loved it so much. I love these characters. And yeah, it's just so wonderful. And I really do think it is going to be a perfect book for people to read this summer. Like we said before, it's set over this hot, sticky summer in Vienna. But it's so much, I think it just resonates with so many people, not just people that are from a sort of creative lifestyle, but also just anybody that's ever loved anybody. I think it'll just resonate with them. And I just think you've written such a beautiful book. So congratulations.
So much, and it's been so nice talking to you about it.
It's been so lovely talking to you. Before I let you go, though, I do like to finish by asking for a recommendation. So what would you like to recommend to the listeners?
Yes, I have not had a lot of time to watch films and TV, which I normally love to do. So I will tell you about a book.
Amazing.
I read recently that I've not seen anywhere, not heard anyone speak about, and I just thought was wonderful and absurd. And it's called Mother Tongue by I think you pronounce her name Naima Brown. But it's basically about this woman who lives.
That's not how I'm thinking of. Sorry. No. You've got the right thing. I thought of another book when you first said it, but the book I'm thinking of is called like Mother Naked or something like that. So, sorry. Continue.
That's brilliant. No, this one is my partner actually picked it up in a bookstore in Australia, and she's got a very good eye for picking up books that are going to be like very like weird and wonderful. And this book is about this sort of woman who is living this normcore life in America, who falls, hits her head on the snow, and wakes up only able to speak French. And like throws a grenade at her life in that kind of all fours way that
yes,
like middle age and panic and like escape. That's what I'll say. But I really loved it, and it's so playful. And you have like little asterisks and so this one had like croissant. It's just like, but it's so beautifully written, and I think very deep. And if you liked all fours,
I
think this is a great next one to read. So.
Oh my god, I haven't heard of this book. I'm so glad you recommended it.
Out in the UK, I as I was saying a bit, I was like, oh, what if it's anyway? I'm sure there'll be a way to access it. But
we'll find it. We'll find it. But thank you so much. I've absolutely loved chatting to you, and I'm so glad that you've come on the podcast and that I've got to read your wonderful book. And for our listeners, it is published in the UK. It's out now by Scribner. Sorry, I said that the completely wrong way around. I'm going to start again. For our listeners, Since the World is Ending is out now. It's published by Scribner in the UK. Let's hope that it makes it out elsewhere so that more of you can enjoy this wonderful book. book. But for my UK listeners, I will pop a link in the show notes for you to grab yourselves a copy. Please do. And where can the listeners find you online?
I think I'm probably most active on Instagram.
Amazing.
Handle is Indyana Rose.
Indyana Rose. Perfect. I will link that as well. And if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you want to give us a follow, you can do so at Pair of Bookends Pod on Instagram and at A Pair of Bookends on Twitter and TikTok. You can also find us for more content over on Patreon and Substack, links in the show notes. But thank you so much again, Indyana. I've loved chatting to you.
So thank you so much.
And thank you, listeners, for listening. Goodbye.